Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso at thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we're discussing the Omega Speedmaster Chronograph date, 40 millimeters in diameter in stainless steel. This is the successor to the legendary Speedy Reduced series of automatic Speedmasters. So it's 40 in diameter, 15.2 millimeters thick. It's 45.6 millimeters from lug to lug, but if you add the solid end links of the bracelet, the total distance across the wrist is 50.4 millimeters with a 19 millimeter spacing between the lugs. You throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, and you can see it's a good fit. Now, this would wear on a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference if it were on a strap. With the end links of the bracelet splaying out to over 50 millimeters across, I'm going to recommend this watch for a wrist of 15 centimeters circumference and up because it really does have a broad wingspan, and maybe the best way to see that is from over the top with those end links, not the lugs, but the end links out to the edge of my wrist. It's not a particularly thick watch, but with that cantilevered bezel that can cause a hang up on a sleeve, consider this suitable for jacket cuffs but not dress shirts. The bracelet's fascinating as for many years Omega fit both Speedmasters and Seamasters with bracelets that looked like they were hybrid dress sports bracelets, and you've got that here. So we've got 3 primary links, which is a signature of many sports bracelets, but then we've also got these polished intermediates, and you can see in profile they are polished, and we have removable links fixed by pins and sleeves. Now these are nice because they don't have the tendency to back out that screws sometimes can, and unlike screws, they don't strip out, but you will need a block and a punch if you want to size this type of bracelet at home, so just keep that in mind. That said, you have 2 micro adjustments inside this thick gauge steel clasp. You can use your strap tool to move the spring bar. There are 2 different anchoring points so you can fine tune that fit. This is a lot like the Speedmaster and Seamaster clasps from the 2000s, albeit with the absence of the fold-out dive extension on the Seamaster, so you get a thick gauge clasp, twin trigger release, and a single fold deployment. You can also see that the engraving on the clasp remains deep and distinct. The case is familiar to Omega fans, a lyre-style lugs, which means an inward bevel and a big outward bevel at the lug ends. We've seen this on Omega Speedmasters and Seamasters since the early 60s, so it's familiar here, albeit in a much smaller size than the full-blown Moonwatch. You can see we do have a bit of a shear guard profile for the crowns and the pushers, and then we have a bezel that's a little bit, I would call it like a flying saucer, as it's angled on both sides, top and bottom, with a polished outer rim, and then it has a anodized aluminum tachymeter scale that can be used with the chronograph to gauge speed. I always use the example of a race car over a kilometer. The dial takes after some of the great sports chronographs of the 60s and 70s with a handsome tricolor of black as the primary, silver as the second, and red as the tertiary, and it really is a colorful and handsome dial, and an upscale one with applied Omega logo, date frame window, and indices. We'll do a quick loom shot so you can get a look at the watch in the dark. This is a sports chronograph, which means you can read chronograph seconds in the dark, though not the other registers. The watch is based on a Valjoux 7750, doing business here as the Omega caliber 1164. Omega does make some upgrades to things like finish and power reserve, but the basics of the 7750 endure. So we've got stop seconds to halt the watch and set it against a reference time. We also have a quick set date. We have a cam and oscillating pinion chronograph system. The cam is the function cycler, but because this is Omega and Omega has swatch group billions, the timing of this cam is as crisp as any column wheel. Plus, you'll notice one of the advantages of the 7750 architecture is you can start up the chronograph like this, and the oscillating pinion has very little play, unlike a conventional lateral clutch. It is a lateral clutch, just a very precise one, which is why 7750s have it, but also a lot of upscale chronographs today, like the RM72 lifestyle chronograph from Richard Mille and the F. Pigeon chronograph monopoussoir. Those all use oscillating pinions. It's a 4 Hertz beat rate. It's got an automatic winding, unidirectional action, just like a conventional 7750. Power reserve goes from 42 in a standard 7750 to 44 in this Omega application. And again, it beats away at 28,800 vibrations per hour, which is 4 hertz. On the reverse side, another big upgrade over something like a moon watch will be the 100-meter water resistance, which means you can absolutely swim with this. And you can see the hippocampus or the seahorse on the reverse side. People always ask me, why this on a Speedmaster? It's not a Seamaster. And I say, well, it was. Back in 1957, the first Speedmaster was considered to be part of the then quite broad Seamaster water-resistant watch family, which is why the seahorse was on the case back and remains there to this day. And unlike the Speedy Reduced that came before it, this one features a sapphire crystal. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.